The UK and the European Union are getting closer to an agreement that could delay the introduction of post-Brexit tariffs on electric vehicles. Earlier this week, the EU approached Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's government with proposals that could extend the phasing in of tariffs on EVs traded between the Union and the UK for almost 2 years, at least according to people familiar with the talks. Under current arrangement in place after the UK's withdrawal from the EU, electric vehicles traded between the two starting this year would be subject to a 10% tariff if less than 45% of their value comes from the region. European car makers have warned those tariffs could cost the sector 4.3 billion euros and benefit Chinese competitors. One of the options under discussion is an arrangement that would effectively delay the imposition of tariffs by about 2 years, as the people said. Talks are ongoing and no final decision has yet been made, with the possibility that discussions drag on for longer, said the people. Electric vehicles have become a major focal point of global trade tensions in recent weeks, as Europe threats that its automakers will lose out to Chinese manufacturers in the transition to less polluting cars. The EU last month launched an investigation of Beijing's financial support for the EV industry. The UK government and European car makers have sought to extend the phase-in period for tariffs by 3 years, backed by many EU member states, including Germany. That possibility remains on the table, according to the people, and France has been opposing a delay, though. The EU was moving away from its initial position that a delay was not acceptable, and months of work on the issue have started to bear fruit. That's at least what a UK government official said, requesting anonymity to discuss private conversations with the press. Well, European car makers recently dialed up pressure on policymakers to delay the tariffs, saying they could reduce production in the region by 480,000 cars over 3 years. The European Automobile Manufacturers Association said it has not yet had any formal communication from the European Commission on possible alternative options to amend the so-called rules of origin in the post-Brexit trade agreement. While we appreciate that efforts are being made to prevent 10% tariffs being levied on electric vehicles in just a few months, we stand by our call for a single medium-term solution. Extend the current phase-in period for battery rules by 3 years. That's what ACEA Director General Sigrid de Vries said in an email statement last Friday. The EU and UK need a deal to delay post-Brexit EV tariffs because the current rules could disrupt the flow of electric vehicles between the two markets and hinder the development of a European EV battery supply chain. Under the current post-Brexit trade deal, EVs that meet certain criteria can be traded freely between the UK and the EU without tariffs. However, starting this year, EVs that do not meet the criteria, such as those with less than 45% of their value originating from the UK or EU, will be subject to a 10% tariff. And this rule was initially intended to encourage the development of a European EV battery supply chain, as the EU wants to reduce its reliance on batteries from China. However, automakers have raised concerns that the tariffs could have several negative consequences. European automakers rely on importing batteries from Asia, and the tariffs would make these batteries more expensive even. And this could lead to higher prices for consumers and could put European automakers at a competitive disadvantage, they say. And they say the tariffs could disrupt the flow of EVs between the UK and the EU, as automakers may need to change their supply chain to comply with the rules. And this could lead to delays in production and a shortage of EVs on the market. And they say that the tariffs could delay the development of a European EV battery supply chain, as it would be more expensive for European companies to invest in battery production. In light of these concerns, the UK and EU might agree now to really go to the full end with those delays, to give them more time and everything. But to be honest, I think as I said in earlier videos, that it is an absolute mistake to do that. It will damage the reputation of the EU in future trade deals. And I know that car makers in my home country as well are big companies with a lot of employees. But we need to think about the overall importance of the credibility of the EU. This is more important than some car companies that partly even belong to the state. If this damages the reputation for trade deals, this will have much more damage than the damage that would come if the tariffs are introduced on short notice. And they are only such a big problem because all the car makers didn't do their homework in the time they had. They had years to do something about it, and they obviously have been sleeping. And so this delay would be positive for them, but not for the EU and its stance. But the reason for all of this is Brexit, and this is the United Kingdom's withdrawal from the EU, and that has been a source of significant political, economic and social upheaval, leading to a range of challenges and controversies. While Brexit was driven by a complex interplay of factors, including concerns about sovereignty, immigration and economic policies, its impact has been felt across various aspects of British society and beyond. One of the most prominent consequences of Brexit has been the disruption to trade relations between the UK and the EU. The loss of free movements of goods and services has led to increased bureaucracy, customs delays and higher costs for businesses and consumers. And this has had a detrimental impact on certain sectors, such as the automotive industry, which relies on seamless trade across borders. And look at the British auto industry now. The UK's departure from the EU single market and customs union has also raised concerns about the country's competitiveness in a globalized economy. The loss of access to preferential trade agreements and the potential for increased tariffs with other countries could hinder British exports and make it more difficult for businesses to attract foreign investment, and we have seen so far that this is true. Brexit has also had a profound impact on British politics, fueling divisions within the Conservative Party and the broader British public. The referendum campaign was highly divisive, with strong arguments presented on both sides of the debate with a lot of lies involved. The subsequent negotiations with the EU further exacerbated tensions as the UK government struggled to secure a deal that satisfied both its own internal factions and the EU's requirements. The political turmoil surrounding Brexit has led to a decline in public trust in political institutions and a rise in populism and Euroscepticism at the time. The UK's political landscape has become more fragmented, with the emergence of new parties and alliances that reflect the deep divisions over Brexit. Beyond economics and politics, Brexit has also had a significant impact on British society, particularly in terms of immigration and identity. The UK's departure from the EU has led to concerns about the rights of EU citizens living in the UK and the potential for increased immigration from outside the EU. And this has fueled tensions and debates about national identity, immigration policy, and the UK's place in the world. The perception of a less open and welcoming UK has also raised concerns about the country's ability to attract talent and investment. The uncertainty surrounding Brexit has made it more difficult for businesses and individuals to plan for the future, potentially hindering economic growth and also innovation. In conclusion, Brexit has been a complex and far-reaching event that is far from over, with far-reaching consequences for the UK and beyond. The economic, political and social implications of Brexit are still unfolding, and it is likely to continue to shape British society for years to come. And if you want to know more about Brexit or UK politics, the next video is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.